Thanks. All right,
Um,
so
Good morning, Benjamin. Thank you for helping my project. I was wondering if you could say a little bit about yourself.
um yeah, I'm just a high school senior who is enthused by all this. It's fun to watch, it's fun to look at. Maybe you think about going to the field someday, like aerospace type stuff.
So I guess like the whole James Webb Telescope launch on Christmas Day was the perfect Christmas
That
gift for you.
yeah, that was fun to watch. Very fun to watch. Although oh hey, have you seen the Where's Web thing? It's like a website that NASA made that basically just like that is cool. That is
Yeah,
cool.
with like the whole
Mm-hmm.
how far is it to L2 and
Mm-hmm.
what are the steps have it completed in terms of its deployment?
Yeah. It's fun to watch. It's fun to whoa, this is a cool thing.
But do you remember when you first became aware of space?
Earliest memory I have is space shuttle launch. I mean, yeah, I think it was like 2009, so it would have been like less than 10 then. Probably one of the last ones. The space shuttle was something else. It was it was a machine designed to do too many things, honestly. It had to meet a bunch of different requirements that all kind of competed with each other, but to be fair, that's every vehicle out there. So it was really bad about what it did. I mean, I don't know. Shuttle is something else. It is the greatest and the worst at spaceflight at the same time, if you think about it. And the shuttle actually goes to show that just because you make something reusable, it doesn't automatically bring down the cost. You have to make it a system that is, designed to be reusable, or it's just going to be a pain in the butt. Like the SRBs were actually only marginally reusable. Well, it was only marginally profitable to reuse them because you had to disassemble the entire thing and then put them back together. Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's why on the SLS they're not going to be reusing the SRBs. Really didn't make much sense economics wise.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I think they're using with the Artemis system is just some of the components of the Orion capsule. Everything else is like one-time use.
Yeah, and a lot of people are very a lot of internet people, I should say, are very mad about this. Although there are some real world folks who get up in a huff about it. But I think something you need to point out is a lot of folks are mad about it, especially in comparison to a certain other launch system being developed by a certain other person that I'm not going to list right now. But the thing is about this other launch system that people are, you know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
The thing about this other launch system is it is still in development. There's some stuff about it that is regret I've already gotten the politics. Okay, basically just take it as the shuttle was supposed to be drastically lower the cost of getting into an orbit and whatnot, and it didn't because of technical reasons. Maybe this other system will work, maybe it won't. The fact of the matter is, however, when you actually look at it in inflation adjusted, SLS isn't that bad. Like inflation adjusted, I think the 7.5s were several billion per launch, and shuttle's like half a billion. So considering the fact we actually got a moon rocket out of this one this time, not so bad. And this is something I never understood. Why are so many people mad about like the RS-25s? Those are like the hydrogen oxygen engines on like the bottom of the SLS, a lot of folks get really particular about the fact for some reason that like those are not being reused because despite the fact that they're designed to be reused because they were reused a lot in the shuttle. The thing is though, is that in order to be reused, you had to like physically yank them out of the bottom of the shuttle. That was it. It wasn't too hard to do, all things considered, but not fun. And like go over everything with a fine-tooth comb. It yes, reuse, but not really. And they have some like new variants in the works that are going to be, designed to be once use. So, there's another thing. People get really mad about how it's like old or something. Just because, okay, listen, just because it's old doesn't mean it's broken. Okay, why do people? The internet does not like old things. Okay, I mean, come on, the whole boomer meme should be evidence of that.
I don't know. It's kind of the internet has a very weird relationship with age. There's definitely a community that loves vintage things, which by definition is old.
Yeah, it's interesting. Anyhow, um, I am talking way too much. You talk a little.
Well, I am kind of curious, and you do mention that just because it's old doesn't mean it's bad. Um, and a lot of people are upset about that and things like that. But maybe we could just put that on pause for a little bit and think about the future. I mean, where do you sort of see the ultimate goal of space exploration? Like, um, what do you envision the future of it looking like?
All right, you ever read The High Frontier?
Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
I've read parts of it, not the whole thing. I mean, I know about Jerry O'Neill's book, and I've heard
Mhm.
Jeff Bezos talk about the inspiration he was to him and how he wants to kind of enable that.
Bezos. Ugh. Okay, do you know about the um, NASA's human landing system for like the moon, where they had three different companies, well, three propose commercial lunar landers,
Yes, SpaceX, Dynetics, and the national team.
which was headed by Blue Origin, so practically them at this point. First off, on HLS, the fact that with commercial crew, both the two final competitors were behind schedule and one of them has still not flown, things shows to me that maybe trying to hand off to commercial companies this time isn't the best of ideas. I mean, I don't know, but the thing is though, is that in this selection statement, NASA, which sorry, in the SpaceX modified Starship version 1 and Bezos sued. Now it's pretty normal to sue in suits like this, but Bezos was particularly angsty about it. So everyone's like, oh yeah, Blue's being the kids in the room here. And yeah, they were. And considering the fact that so far the only thing that's flown is New Shepard, I mean, New Shepard is a pretty cool vehicle, I believe. It's reusable suborbital capsule, kind of cool. I don't understand why they tested 20 times. Like, honestly, it really looks like Richard Branson pushed them to like finally say, screw it, we're gonna put people in this thing. Yeah, it's definitely a meme that New Glenn, that's the big rocket that Bezos is trying to make. It's definitely a meme that it's never coming. And do not even get me started on the "Where are my engines" meme. Like, you heard about that?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right. So context for folks who've never heard of this: the BE4 engines. Those are the engines that are going to power New Glenn. They're liquid oxygen, liquid methane fueled engines, and they're also going to be powering the ULA Vulcan, which is ULA is like Boeing and Lockheed merged their space division stuff in like either the knots, the like 2000s or the 90s, one of the two. Anyhow, you stick those two under each other. Yeah. So Vulcan, broadly speaking, pretty cool launch vehicle. If you go on Twitter, you'll hear Tony Bruno talk about it. If I seem likable to SL well, to ULA, it's because I've heard that they treat their employees decent, which some other space launch companies have a bit of an issue with. Like, yeah, I understand it is rocket science and that is hard, but you don't need to promptly fire someone on the spot, okay? I don't know. It's a whole interesting ethics, morals, all that fun stuff. Back to rockets and away from Mickey politics. Well, good luck separating those. Anyhow, so broadly speaking, Vulcan, while not I'd say done, is very close to it. The issue is, however, is that Blue Origin is dragging their feet on delivering those engines. So particularly for the folks who like to follow ULA, you have them, posting where my engines, just finding where they go. It's just like one of those funny inside memes you see sometimes. Anyhow, back to moon landing, whatnot. Wait, where? Oh yeah, just long-term O'Neill cylinders. Here's the thing about Mars. One is far away. Okay, like people seem to underestimate just how far away it is to get to Mars. Like half a year or more to get there, and that's only like in a transformer that comes every 2 years. And then you have to either A, stay there for 30 days, then boot and spend the next like 200 or 300 days in deep space. That's a opposition class mission, I believe. Like there's two main mission architectures that you see for Mars pop up for exploration missions. For colonization, that's a whole other bag. Like people seem to, sometimes it feels like folks underestimate just how much stuff you're gonna need on Mars to keep people alive, like long term without any input from Earth. Okay, this is not, the colonization of the new world here. If you take up, there's no readily accessible air you can make it. There's water, but you're gonna have to poke around to find a bit of it. And the economic motivation to do so for Mars is a bit lacking. I'm just saying, man.
Well, and even the New World, stories like Roanoke show that that's not exactly easy.
I don't know why, but for some reason I've always just like felt like, we should name the space station Roanoke or New Roanoke. I have no idea why. That is definitely tempting fate. And I don't know, the space deities or something will get mad at that. I don't know. Anyhow, but yeah, Mars is hard. And another thing though, this is the big thing, long term. We don't know if humans can, long term live in Mars level gravity well. We don't know if they can live in moon level gravity well. We don't even know if Venus gravity at 91% of Earth is enough to, sustain the human body. And we really don't know if you can have kids in that. We really don't know if those kids can actually grow up and be normal. Okay? We don't know that. And if you're going to start a colony before you know that, you are insane, in my opinion. Because it's something that isn't easy, but way easier to figure out than actually going there. Okay? You probably want to start, human development, which, and this is a morally touchy topic, obviously. But yeah, you'd want to figure out if humans could develop on Mars something approaching normal before you did this. Then you'd want to also figure out, listen, if you want to generate like a normal gravity on Mars, you could do that by having like a tilted monorail type track that goes around. All it honestly should be a train. But at that point, if you're spinning something, then why not just do it as a station in high Earth orbit? Because if you have stations, in the lunar L4, L5 points, or around the moon, it's gonna take a few days to get between Earth and back. But it's decently plausible you could see, people on Earth again if you do that. If you go to Mars, nope, good luck getting back.
So O'Neill cylinders are fantastic in my view because you can put them wherever you want them.
Mm-hmm.
You can move them around.
Yeah. As hard as that is, it's a lot of mess, but yeah, if you're a bit patient, you could probably do that.
But I mean, I could see how you could build an O'Neill cylinder and that becomes like the beginnings of your interstellar ship at some point,
I
right?
mean, you could do that, but like probably just use the tooling and techniques you learned how to use the tooling and techniques you used to build that cylinder to build your ship. Because in general, you want to design something to do something, not, I mean, yeah, you can convert stuff, but like that means it's heavy and you want something to be the least amount of heavy as possible. Also, another thing, the actual windows you see in like a lot of the older designs, really cool looking, but please know that is an accident waiting to happen. I mean, yes, I do get that O'Neill addresses that in the actual designs, that, even something hitting this and breaking is that if like a micrometeoroid hit the window, it's not going to, the air is not going to leak out in like a few minutes. You're going to have time to fix this. The thing is, though, is one that's going to let way more radiation in, and you want to avoid that because that's already bad enough up there. And two, you want, that's a lot of wasted space right there. So instead, of wanting to, instead of needing to do the giant mirror thing, what you probably do is have giant mirrors in the front and use like a mirror system to have a solar collector in the front and use mirror collectors to like bounce light ends and then shine down on you. That way you can make use of the entire, diameter of the cylinder. And honestly, with O'Neill cylinders, the first ones we're definitely going to build are going to be way smaller than like that. Like we're going to first have to start with like, the ring station, like ring, Von Braun 1950s stations, those guys. Yeah, there was some company giving some renders about that for a while back, but honestly, it looks a little bit suspect to me. Who knows?
I think orbital assembly might have been the
Yeah,
company.
long term, we're gonna have to learn how to do that, but I mean, that actually brings me on to another thing. Different rockets have different payload, like different missions requirements. Like if you have a rocket that's all it's ever been doing is delivering like dumb materials that no one cares if it like launches, then you can seriously reduce the then you can seriously reduce like the safety requirements on that. If you have something that must fly every single time and work every single time, that is going to be way more expensive. So another thing though is that like, sorry, another thing is that trying to decrease the cost of making said rocket. Like, you ever heard of big dumb boosters?
I've heard of it. I
Yeah,
mean, just as a general series of words put together,
yeah. The whole idea basically boils down to make your rocket literally as simple as possible, okay? And either don't try to reuse it or only reuse what is very practical to use. A lot of designs, like, okay, for example, gimbaling engines. It basically is the engine rotates to redirect thrust in case something happens. Now, that makes the engine complex. The big dumb booster option of that is basically to have like your main engine and then have like a bunch of smaller little Werner engines, and you like control the rocket by increasing or decreasing the thrust of those little mini engines, which works. It's probably less efficient, but it's way easier to make. And then also use propellants that are not a pain in the butt to find. Use material that you can find anywhere. So instead of trying to use like aluminum lithium alloys or aluminum foam compositions, use steel. And then it's just, big dumb booster is an interesting concept because it's a completely different approach to what trying to reuse a vehicle is, because it's like, hey, I don't care if this thing explodes afterwards or dies because I'm done using it. Oh, that's another thing. It's set up in this like a assembly line production for stuff. There's actually, you ever heard of OTRAG?
I have not.
Okay, it sounds honest. If it had worked, it would have sounded honestly like the plot to a bad novel. Like, it was some German guy who was basically like, hey, I'm going to mass produce like these, rocket engine stage things that you can like, that two guys could carry, provided they're unfueled. that you'd then assemble together in multiple clusters and then launch it into orbit from pretty much anywhere. And the only places he could end up actually getting testing for were the Congo. This is like in the 60s or 70s, I think. The Congo under like some pretty horrible dictator, and Libya under Gaddafi. So what's the guy's? I don't know, some German dude. His whole idea was mass produce a bunch of like booster stages, booster stage, cluster them a bunch of them together, like 20 or 30 of them together, and then use that to launch rockets. Now the rocket technically wouldn't have worked, but it's an interesting design concept, all things considered. Yeah. Oh, and then speaking of even more crazy space stuff, you ever heard of Project Babylon?
I have not.
Okay, basically it was a guy who wanted to build space guns, basically use a giant gun to launch stuff into space. It sounds insane, but if you're just launching, say, propellant or structural steel that's being welded together or something up in space, economics of it make actually great sense. Anyhow, he used to do some testing programs for the U.S. military, but that didn't go through, all things considered. So, considering the fact he still wanted to make space guns, he eventually went to Iraq under Saddam Hussein. So, I'm sorry, it's just Saddam Hussein with the space gun. Okay, man, like, what the heck is this? And the way he was building it was importing pipeline, like oil pipeline parts, then modified for like some specific circumstances, and then like running them up a mountain to shoot stuff into space. This thing would have not have been stealthy whatsoever if they'd actually launched it, because every time you'd fire the dumb thing, anyone close to it would die due to shockwaves ripping all their organs apart, and it would have looked like a small earthquake. So I think a lot of folks are going to notice, hey, there's this earthquake that keeps showing up in this one spot in Iraq. And if you look at, satellite photos of this place, there's a lot of stuff going on here. What are you doing, Saddam? So, yeah, folks realized, I think it was a British company that was doing it, that was making these pipeline pieces, realized, hey, there's some really weird things about the specification for these pipeline pieces. Then folks realized, oh, Saddam Hussein's trying to get a space gun. And then like the engineer dude, for whatever, he was like in the Netherlands for some reason, and then someone offed him. The general consensus is it was like Mossad or someone, I don't know. Yeah, space flight is full of all kinds of crazy, insane things. Oh, then there's that time they tried to put a helicopter in a rocket to make it reusable. We don't talk about that. But yeah, rockets there's a lot of interesting personalities out there. So,
well, while we're on that topic, have you heard of spin launch? And do you have any thoughts about it?
Hold on. They might have been doing the test at lower speeds than you anticipate. And space guns are probably better for that type of market. So it's nice to see someone actually trying something that isn't just the classical, rocket type thing going on here. But like, if you want to, space guns would probably work better, honestly. Yeah. Because the thing with space gun works is you're dealing with like a lot of, any spin launch satellite's gonna have to have a lot of, it takes a while to spin up. So it's gonna have to deal with, still waking up. It's gonna have to deal with, a payload on the end is gonna have to have some heavy forces being put on it while it's gonna be spin up, while the space gun is gonna have heavy forces on it for like a fraction of a second before it goes end. Some things are easier to design for than others. It's a whole just interesting question of, what can we do here? And also, what is this, launcher designed to do? Are we launching, like I said, are we launching propellant and no one cares if this dies? Or are we launching, national security payloads that will have the US government mad at us if it dies? It's, it all really depends upon your market. How big is it? Where's it going?
Like Zuma, for example.
Zuma?
Yeah, SpaceX had launched the Lockheed Martin satellite back in like January of 2019.
Yeah.
You know, that it was for some US governmental entity, unnamed. Apparently, it didn't get released from its uh, the adapter that hooks up to the rocket,
Payload
and that.
after failure.
But there's a lot of theories about it. Was it really a failure?
Oh,
Was it
that's
a
a fun
stealth?
one.
Was it a stealth satellite? There's been
I
some.
mean, to the average like Joe just accessing data, you probably could make the satellite stealth. Probably a bit hard to make it. It's probably a bit hard to make it stealth to like a foreign nation that's gonna be looking up there. But who knows? I'm not the U.S. military. I'm not a Fed boy, as some people like to yap about, and how they're. I don't know. People don't listen to everyone you hear on the internet, man.
Hmm,
That goes for me as well, and you.
absolutely. So O'Neill cylinders, that's exciting,
Yes.
right?
Sorry,
How
geez.
do
I'm still on this thing.
how do we actually? I mean, how do we go from where we are to that? And
All
how
right.
long
First
does it
off, we
take?
need to. First off, if we're going to be getting up into space, we need to start finding stuff that is economically profitable to do so. Right now, the big thing is geostationary communication satellites. And what I'm honestly really hopeful for, because this is something that like is kind of inherent to space, is microgravity manufacturing. You see, the whole idea is that in space stuff floats, so to speak. So you can do interesting mechanical processes there. Like on the ISS, they've grown really big crystals, which medical guys are interested in. They've also figured out that like you ever heard about 3D printing organs?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, here on Earth, it takes them a while to form up, so to speak. So you have to have like support structures built into the organs, and that reduces their effectiveness. But in space, you could just have like the thing float up there and form up, so to speak. So, you know, what is it with like space and medical applications? Oh, and then there's like this interesting fiber optic that they found that they could make in a microgravity up there. So, long term, the way I see it, space is going to start with people making stuff up there, and then it's going to transition to propellant depots, tugs, reusable satellites, or like serviceable satellites for people actually, I don't know, doing something about their own space junk. Like everyone is bad about it, but just it's fun. It's fun, man. And then it's going to get to the point where someone, it's probably going to get initially prompted or funded as a government project, but some people are going to start using lunar resources as propellant, then actually maybe smelting aluminum, as a structural material. And then at that point, you're going to start people saying, hey, why don't we have people live up here? Or why don't we try to, make solar power satellites? But yeah, it's going to be a bit of a, we're going to start off commercially, at least in low Earth orbit, and then, push on out to the moon. So yeah, that's
Um,
fun.
do you think Artemis and our push to get to the moon now accelerates or delays kind of the development of that space economy that you're talking about?
Wait, the what delay to get the moon now?
Oh, do you think us going to the moon now will help to speed along that development of that space economy that you're talking
Yeah,
about? Or do
yeah.
you think that, and kind of sucking up all those resources for that purpose might actually delay things? What are your
Okay, here's the
thoughts?
thing you have to understand, at least as far as NASA goes, it is a 0.5% of the US budget. Okay, it is small compared to a lot of the other things you spend on stuff. A lot of people don't seem to know of like how much we actually spend on NASA. Like NASA, despite the fact we're trying to go back to the moon, is getting less funding than like what we got during the shuttle years. Actually, I think NASA getting less funding than what it got during the construction of the ISS. So it's interesting to look like people like NASA has a way smaller budget than back when they did all that insane stuff. So just keep that in mind, folks. Also, I never understood the whole like NASA versus SpaceX thing. Like SpaceX is a private company, NASA is a government entity. They're their own thing. It's just they do different things. I don't know. But yeah. Whole thing about Artemis is that it's going to, at least for like, the human landing system, it is going to develop some depot propellant refueling type stuff, or at least, test that a lot. So we're going to get data on that. We're going to get more data on, stuff on the moon. We are, after Artemis, at least long term, we're going to get a station around the moon, the Lunar Gateway. The orbit for that thing is actually kind of interesting. It's like a big, long orbit, elliptic orbit around the moon, near rectangular halo orbit, something like that. NRHO, look it up. But yeah, we're going to learn more about stuff out there. We're going to learn about operating in that type of environment. And there actually are some folks interested commercial wise. Like, it's small so far, but there are some commercial entities interested in at least looking into this stuff. So yeah, the amount of resources being spent on Artemis actually isn't all that much, all things considered. It's just, a thing that's there. It's all right. And there's also resources, that private companies are spending on stations and whatnot. That stuff is being proposed for and whatnot. But yeah, no, Artemis, it's fine.
And talking about stations, the ISS been extended to 2030.
Yeah, I have not read much about that. I am not sure what to think about that. Just politically, Russia is becoming very okay. The Russian orbital segment right now is what provides propulsion up there. Politically, Russia is its own thing. I'll just say that stuff got a bit more tense starting in 2014. Anyhow, the longer that happens, the folks just don't like it. It gets messy. It's politics. People don't want. It's a thing. It's a thing. And I don't know. It's an old station. The thing was originally designed to, retire in 2020 or a few years after that. Just don't keep it flying forever, and then being the last time it flies being when it, depressurizes violently. Okay, let's retire the thing, when it's good to do so. Now you can definitely service the thing, but when we'll get to the point where building a new station or servicing something else will be, I mean, all things considered, the 2030 retirement date isn't the worst, because the Orbital Reef one, the like other stations that folks are getting funding for, those are supposed to come online in like 2028. I think was the number often listed. So that gives you a bit of wiggle room and time for other folks for NASA to move their operations over onto a station. So I suppose that works. Yeah, no, it's not the worst, but yeah, I think money would probably be better spent trying to get other stations up quicker, but whatever, it's all good.
And do you remember when you learned about Artemis?
I mean, the whole thing back in my day, it was the whole constellation program we're supposed to get back, and then something happened politics wise to that. I don't know. And the only thing that really survived is Orion SLS and the Ares 5 launch vehicle. Those are different things. Keep that in mind. Anyhow, the issue with spaceflight has been that it feels like every single president comes in and changes their predecessor's policy, except with like the political transfer in 2020, like from Trump to Biden. Not much really changed there, so that's nice to know.
I know that seems to be the one area of common policy between the two administrations.
Yeah, I like that.
Essentially, keeping Artemis, keeping support for Space Force, and
I mean, a lot of people like to give Trump flack for that, but honestly, it's not the stupidest of ideas, having all your space assets managed under one entity. Anyhow, yeah, it's politics.
But what do you think about us going back to the moon?
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be cool to watch. Honestly, I hope that everyone else thinks it's fun. Although if you do see people complaining about it, bring up, and this is for the entire NASA program, the 0.5% of the national budget. Bring that up to folks if they complain about the money spent on it, and point out to them that you should be complaining about the military. You need a military, but like don't give them a blank check for anything. You know, rein them in sometimes.
Yeah.
And also, when stuff goes over budget, try to avoid the American taxpayer having to foot the bill as much as possible. If it's a private contractor building stuff, they should have to foot the bill if it goes over budget.
Well, a lot of it depends upon why it goes over budget too.
Yeah,
Sometimes
that's an important
requirements
thing. If it goes
change.
over budget because of bad management, you're going to pay for it. If it goes over budget because of stuff that legitimately isn't your fault, or if it goes over budget because, hey, this is supposed to be doing 5 years, we need in 2. Yeah, I mean, context is important with a lot of things. But yeah, no, all things considered, the space program isn't that expensive. I mean, honestly, you could argue that we should be spending more, but I don't know. It's an interesting thing to talk about. But we're going back. It's gonna be fun this time. It'll be nice to actually see live footage from the moon, or live footage with a 1-2 second delay. Speed of light is a very fast but very slow.
Do you think we'll actually make it onto the moon before 2030?
Oh yeah, 2030, yes. The 2024 would have been the last year of the Trump presidency, and considering the fact he proposed the thing back in during his first term, it kind of seems like that date was politically motivated, and it's been officially pushed back to no later than 2025, mainly because of the landing system and the suits. There have been an issue with like a spacesuit is an incredibly complex thing because you have to make a spacecraft that can support a single person. Okay, like that alone is probably in the billions is what we're talking about for that thing. But I'd say either 2026, which would be the 2026, or 2028 seems reasonable to me. Probably 2026, I hope.
Yeah, earlier the better.
Yeah. The thing is, though, is a lot of folks like don't make it a race, okay? Because a lot of other folks say they want to land folks on the moon, but we were already there first, okay? Now, under the Aerospace Treaty, you can't claim anything on the moon, but well, you can mine stuff, but like you can't claim the mining area. It's interesting. It's politics. It's gonna be fun to watch and see how that plays out. But long term, the Aerospace Treaty of '67 is not going to last that much longer, in my opinion. So I think we're going to want to develop something new as far as that goes.
And how do you see us developing something new? Because you have very few people who would want to change things. Those would be the people that could actually harvest resources and do things on site. And then you have a lot of people who don't care one way or the other, but at the same token, maybe they're kind of biased towards want to preserve their future in space.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Right now, any internationally binding treaty would probably be a nation on nation thing. And given some recent news about you heard about the Russian ASAT test, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Then there was a recent thing where some Starlink satellites made a close pass to China's station.
Mm-hmm.
The name of the thing escapes me, but the English translation is something like Heavenly Palace. It works very well. Yeah, like honestly, yeah. When you look at like the English translation versus like what it sounds like, it actually sounds very different. It's interesting. But yeah, some Starlink satellites made a pass of about 3 and 5 kilometers. There's 2 separate ones. And apparently that was after the station maneuvered out of the way to not avoid them. So I'm not sure. I mean, you can talk about who's at fault here or whatnot, but it obviously kind of shows that, hey, we need some sort of system here to show and make sure that we're not in the process of that different spacecraft communicate with each other, so we can make sure that we're not about to collide and cause a bunch of debris and stuff like that. But realistically, a treaty I can see working between different nations is one, you deal with your own space debris, to your satellites or whatnot will report its position so we can make sure they don't collide with each other. 4, agreeing to help fellow astronauts or explorers. And 5, this is an interesting one, either deciding like whether or not people finally deciding once and for all whether or not you own the moon or you're just allowed to mine resources on it. Oh, maybe some sort of thing about like, hey, don't mess up our space probes, that's our stuff. I mean, it's just a whole interesting question.
But then the other question is salvage.
Oh
When
yeah,
can
that's
you go
fun.
and under what conditions can you actually salvage old space equipment?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing to think about there. And, reprocessing stuff in orbit and using that to do things like probably one of the easier things to do would be to take old upper stages and either A, convert them into like your own station habitable volume, or B, melt them down and use them for like shielding or something. Or use them for the original purpose of storing propellant. And the issue is who owns those things? The thing is though, is it's actually kind of the space launch companies right now prefer the limbo because one, if they say that, oh yes, we own this is ours, then they're responsible for it. So if it hits someone, they're going to get flack for it. However, if they say nope, that's not ours, anyone else can just take it and do what they want with it, then they don't get the benefit from someone doing economic activities with it. So they like the limbo so they can have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if it was safe and affordable, would you take a trip to space?
Oh yeah, at least I think so. Uh, are we talking like orbital flight or orbital? Big
Well,
difference.
I guess I'm curious in how far you would go. Would you do like a Blue Origin, a New Shepard ride?
I don't know, man. I don't know. It's morals, ethics. Listen. Maybe I'll go up there. I probably won't. Most of us probably won't. Honestly, but it's gonna be fun to watch it happen.
Would you do like an Inspiration 4 trip?
That's assuming I'm a millionaire, man.
No.
Okay,
It's assuming it's
multi-millionaire.
affordable. It's assuming it's affordable. Uh,
Uh, maybe that might be fun. I don't know, dude. It's interesting to think about.
I
It's
would point
interesting.
out that 3 of those people were not millionaires.
Yeah, all of their flight was paid for by millionaires. So
Uh,
you know, that's an
uh,
interesting question right there.
would you do like a Dear Moon trip?
Uh, maybe. Although honestly, there's more astronauts than you expect from the Apollo programs who like went out to the moon actually had issues with had some like weird cardiovascular issues later in life. And long term, I think something you actually need to learn about is the radiation environment in space and how that affects people, which is kind of important if we're ever going to go to Mars, not just for like colonization. But there's more to learn about how radiation past low Earth orbit affects people. And we're going to learn about that through Artemis, one way or another, which is basically just, hey, let's send humans there and see what happens to them, which is morbid, but yeah, that'll work. But yeah, there's some weird things, sort of like more of the Apollo astronauts had cardiovascular issues in the general population and from general people who just went to like low Earth orbit. So maybe that's something, but like it's a sample size of 24 people. So be a little bit cautious on that. Like you want over 50 at bare minimum, preferably even more, but who knows, dude? There's some weird stuff. I'm gonna hold off until we know more about that. But yeah, it's fun to watch. It's fun to see folks go up there, and I'm hopeful for the future. Although
And
I do think NASA could get better at space flight communication about hey, here's stuff we're doing, and I do think that a lot of I do think that a lot of people online who talk about space need to actually get a bit more knowledge about how stuff works. It's just learn what you're talking about, y'all. Okay. And if be open to people coming up and saying, hey, I think you're wrong about that. You're not, you're forgetting this. Because we can all learn here. And the internet's big and it's easy to forget stuff.
Now you're a senior in high school,
Yep.
thinking about what colleges to go to, what careers to pursue, thinking about working in this field. What are some kind of like career thoughts you've had about getting into space?
Hoping to get like degree in aerospace, something like that. But the only thought I've had is either I'm going to be making rockets for F-35s, rockets, launch payloads, or rockets that are going to be launched in space for the Space Force. That's my one little joke about that.
Megan Crawford, which is one of the kind of co-founders, co-owners of the Space Fund, and tracks all these companies that do things in space. She says there's like 120 launch companies out there at various stages, from being just simple PowerPoints to actually having hardware and launching stuff. So that full gamut.
And half of the ones with hardware are probably only just Electron clones. Let's be honest here.
Well, and she says that what we need is not more ways to get to orbit, but more things to put in orbit. We need fewer
commercial demand.
We need fewer rockets and more things to launch. And I was just wondering if you thought about maybe kind of focusing your career on that, like doing
like the
beyond
designing stations, orbital manufacturing and stuff like that.
Exactly.
I mean, something I really think we should see in a few years is like space tugs, basically, and have satellites designed to do this. You go out to a satellite, you refuel it, then so you get to stay up there longer, or you tow back down, and someone like at a station, you put in you stick in like a pressurized environment, but like not oxygen, because oxygen is horrible on everything. Like, I don't know, inert helium, and then like some guys with air masks come in, and gals too probably, poke around, fix the thing up, prepare stuff. I don't know. It's interesting, like prospect and idea to think about. It's interesting. And propellant depots, places to store the propellants, the tugs can go and get said propellant. Although it might make more sense because like the way Earth orbit works is if you have a satellite in one orbital inclination, it is a pain in the butt as far as like delta V costs go, change in velocity costs go, to get from like one inclination over to another inclination. So it actually might make more sense just like launch your, or actually might make more sense to have a way to bring your tug back down or something. I don't know, man. It's interesting to think about. But yeah, space tugs, it's gonna be exciting to see that one day. It's gonna be exciting to see like, microgravity manufacturing. It's gonna be exciting to like finally get like, a station that can generate some kind of artificial gravity, because right now the only two things you really have data, like large amounts of data on, are humans in Earth gravity, humans in microgravity. And we have a little bit of data for humans in lunar gravity, but not much. So at the moment, we need more data on humans in lunar level gravity and humans in like Mars or whatnot level gravity. And we actually don't have to go there to generate that gravity. We just have something in orbit that spins to generate it.
Yeah. Of course, you have a problem about maintaining balance. I don't.
Oh yeah, spinning things, you have to. I mean, the reason why on the O'Neill design is why they have to have a second cylinder is to counter the rotational torque of that said cylinder. Oh, the whole fact that like there is a the whole fact that like you're trying to design an airtight seal that could spin seems a bit difficult to do to me. So that's why I've always kind of wondered, like, you put the pressure vessel, have it be non-rotating, and like have shielding for radiation and space free on the outside, and you have like your structure internally rotating.
Well, how to make it airtight and frictionless. That's
that's the big one, or at least close to frictionless.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's why I don't try to do that. Just make an internally rotating one. okay, way simpler to do. And honestly, what you're going to see, like, let me search this up real quick. Okay, so what is, I believe it's pronounced Kalpana. Yeah, Kalpana 1. Look it up a little bit. Kalpana 1. It's basically some folks got together and came up with a design idea for a station that is, certainly far future, but a couple decades far future, not like 100 years far future. And it's, the idea is you could, fit a couple thousand people in it. It's like the circumference is probably a little under a kilometer. It's a couple hundred meters wide. And this is actually interesting. It's like a big squat cylinder that rotates relative to the sun. Like look it up, find some renders on it or something. Anyhow, they actually had to purposely design the thing to have like a certain dimensions so it'd be stable actually over long-term time periods. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ideas for space habitats out there. It's interesting to look into them. And then there's a whole, talk about, where do you get the materials for this? Is this like mined from the asteroids? Is it mined from the moon? Do you ship this up from Earth? We're still working on that, and there needs to be reasons for folks to be out there doing that stuff. It's an interesting question that we're going to be talking about and having to deal with before too long.
Yeah, it's gonna be an exciting future.
Oh yeah, I mean, regardless of what happens, it's gonna be cool to watch space stuff. Anyhow, one final thing, I believe. I mean, I think I've talked long enough, haven't I?
Yeah, it'd probably be a good idea to wrap it up. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the next upcoming Artemis program thing going on, I believe, is this mission called Capstone. And basically it's just a, large CubeSat that's going to check and make sure that the orbit that I talked about earlier for the Gateway, the NRHO one, models and predictions say pretty confidently that this should work and that, the Gateway should be able to sit here fine. And the main reason why, there's a lot of people, one of the reasons it was chosen was that the delta V cost for maintaining an orbit there is pretty low, only about 10 meters per second per year. And considering the fact that things equipped with like electrical propulsion, like an ion drive powered by solar panels, that's not that bad. So yeah, decent station keeping costs. We think it should work, and we have no reason to believe it shouldn't work. But you want, before you actually put your multi-billion-dollar station there, you want to, test it first with a little CubeSat. So yeah, Capstone, that's launching. Let me check this one real quick. I should know this. Yeah, it's basically just a little 12-unit CubeSat. It is scheduled for 2022, I think. Yeah, Rocket Lab's doing it. It is launching in, okay, it was scheduled for the fourth quarter of 2021 back in August. It got pushed back. Seriously, when is this sucker launching? Okay, March 19th, 2022. Mark your calendar, folks. It's basically just, the whole thing about this is we have no reason to believe this is going to be an issue. We have a reason to suspect this is going to work, but we want to check this, make sure it'll work. But yeah, it's a pretty small satellite. I mean, come on, it's 55 pounds. That's like less, how much is like a 12-year-old weigh? Probably more than that. This thing is tiny, okay? It's not that big, but it's going to be going to the moon. So, hey, that's pretty cool.
That is awesome.
Excited to see that.
Well, definitely keep an eye out for the March 19th Capstone launch. And
yep, it's just
then hopefully a month after this, Artemis 1 would be
hopefully
good.
Well, I mean, I believe the February launch date slipped because of some issues with one of the engine controllers on the engines. And then there is the March and April launch dates. I'm not sure why. I actually need to search this up, but every there's a launch window that shows up about every month or so. So that's good to know about. But yeah, we're going back to the moon. a lot of cool stuff going on. It's not as expensive as you think. And hopefully we're going to be here for a long time. I'm excited to see it happen. I'm excited to go. I'm excited when we maybe see some space tugs. And, on-orbit refueling has actually been demonstrated by some folks. Let's see, the Russians have done it. I think DARPA did it at one point. Has China done it? I think China's testing it actually right now over on like Heavenly Palace. Oh yeah, and China's actually going to be launching. Speaking of that, I think this is also scheduled for this year. Remember a while back when China launched Station 1 and the upper stage of the rocket didn't promptly deorbit itself, so it was a bit uncontrolled?
Yes.
They're going to be doing that 2 more times.
Hmm.
To be fair, however, it's a bit rich of us Americans. Like, yeah, it's bad. But we also got to know some wood in our own eye, so to speak. Like Skylab, for one. 76 tons coming down in a completely uncontrolled manner. So we all have wood in our eyes. Let's just try to, not have this happen in the future, please. Let's all try to be responsible. So yeah, excited to see stuff get made in space. Excited to see us go on out there as a species. I'm excited for life.
Well, thank you so much, Benjamin, for talking to me today. And I hope
Pleasure,
you have a
Andrew.
good rest of your Sunday.
Nathan, geez.
No worries. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.